Right, carrying on from the last video, the parts have been wire brushed, degreased and made ready for zinc plating. So a quick fiddle with the zinc plating tank and the ends of the hoses were put into the solution and plated. You don't stand over the tank all day, you just set it in motion and come back to it. I actually have a little cooking timer that I set up for whichever period I think is required for the parts, and it goes off and lets me know that any time now you should go back and check on them. Once they're plated and passivated, you have to leave them overnight with the passivation chromate on them so that they go nice and hard. It's a simple case of fitting the brackets and the pipes to the bike. The top one here mounts to the mudguard mountings, and then it's a simple job, well, not so simple job, of making the hoses line up all the way to the top. The T140 E has a hydraulic switch for the brake light, and getting that to line up is quite entertaining, shall we say. I find it best to just put everything loosely into place so that it can be fiddled with as you're working your way up, and once everything's bolted up, and well, not so much bolted up but loosely in place and aligned, then a final tighten up to just get everything right. It gives you a bit of leeway when you're trying to get the threads to line up and stuff like that. I think making up this plating system was well worth it. I'm still learning how to use it, obviously, and I'm sure there's a couple of refinements I can do as I go along, but the initial results are, well, they're just fantastic. These hoses were perfectly serviceable but looked rough, and just in the time saving, the fact that you can just do them, put them back on the bike, they're already bent to the right alignment and things like that. It just improves the finish and just makes life a bit easier. Well worth the effort. It also means, of course, any parts that I make for the smaller bikes, which, you know, parts are hard to get for, simple things like nuts and bolts and that, can be brought back to the original finish. Up until now I tended to make them out of stainless if they had to have a finish on them, you know. But now I can give them an original zinc finish. As I say, well worth having in the workshop if you want to do this sort of stuff. With the brake lines loosely in place, I decided to swap out the handlebars. I did get a new pair earlier, but they were obviously off a Japanese bike because the serrations at the centre of the handlebars, where the P-clips, weren't in alignment with the clamps themselves. So here you can see me fitting them, putting on the master cylinder and the shims, the two little half shims that go in the P-clamp to hold everything tight. The flexible hose from the master cylinder goes through the top yoke and then has this little piece here to join onto the brake light switch. And I think this was the fiddliest bit of all, getting all this to line up. It's funny, once you figure out what way the pipes are connected to the switch and the position of the switch, it all lined up magically. The final tighten of all the screws and get everything into alignment. And as you can see there, it's quite nice, no rust, just fits in with the rest of the bike, not concours the elegance, the owner wants to ride it. One last job before I call it a day. The bolts for the P-clamps for the handlebars are rusty and horrible. They seem to have a very hard life. I've never come across a bike where the chrome has stood up to the wear and tear. So I'm going to make them out of stainless. Even though I preached earlier on how nice the plating system was working, there is a place for stainless on the bike. As I say, it's just more durable in certain situations. So they'll get turned up on the lathe. Here you can see me reducing the hex bar down, so that down to the cut the thread, and there we are, cutting the thread by hand in the lathe. You can do it under power, but they're only threaded for about 3/4 of an inch, so better finish doing it this way. With the threaded end finished, the bolt is cut off, reversed in the chuck, and a dome finish put on it. I think it might be time for a new hacksaw blade. First faced off flat, realising the tool is a little bit too low. And then just freehand put a little, what would be, convex dome to the top of the hex to match the originals. Nice little finishing touch. And then the tool marks taken out with a gentle bit of filing and polishing with emery paper. Don't do this in a spinning lathe unless you have previous experience. It's very easy to get it wrong and get the paper torn out your fingers. And there we are. They can be polished up later, but they're not too bad even as they are. So whip them onto the handlebars. While I was at it, I also made up the pivot bolt for the handlebar lever. in stainless. Couldn't find the original. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.